as a Muslim enemy.
Tommy Robinson was a passionate standard-bearer for the English Defence League. He helped establish the far-right group 4 years ago. Since then, one independent estimate suggests it's attracted up to 35,000 active supporters. Far fewer have joined its street protests, which have been confrontational and sometimes violent. But now it seems its leader has become disenchanted with the EDL.
When some moron lifts up his top and he's got a picture of a mosque saying boom, and it's all over the national newspapers, it's me. It's when I pick up my kids from school, the parents are looking at me, judging me on that. And that's not what I've stood for. And my decision to do is to be true to what I stand for. And whilst I want to lead a revolution against Islamist ideology, I don't want to lead a revolution against Muslims.
Well, Dr. Chris Allen studies Islamophobia and far-right groups at the University of Birmingham and is an independent member of the cross-government working group on anti-Muslim hate. Chris Allen, what do you make of this? Is this a sort of born-again moment, or is it something much more subtle than that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, when the story broke this morning, that's exactly how we described it. It was almost like a born-again Christian coming out and sort of saying how wonderful life was. I think the thing that we have to bear in mind is that what Tommy Robinson's actually talking about is the fact that he's actually just rejected the kind of street movement and also the kind of violence that went with that. He hasn't actually rejected the ideology that's behind it, and he hasn't actually rejected the kind of Islamophobia, the anti-Muslim, the anti-Islamism as he wraps it up, but clearly that has spilled out into being against all Muslims in quite a few of the protests that he's kind of led for the EDL.
And would you be surprised if he popped up somewhere else in politics, even in more mainstream politics?
No, absolutely not. I think there was a clue in the actual comments that he made, and he spoke about a more democratic approach to actually furthering his agenda. And I think it's quite interesting that, you know, just about a year or two ago, there was rumours that he was going to stand for the British Freedom Party. And I think that given the fact that we've got the European elections within next year, I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if we didn't see some sort of party emerging around those people that have left the EDL and are trying to gain votes for the European Parliament.
I mean, you're making it sound like this is a political strategy in essence. He was talking there about how it felt picking up his kids from school and family life and all the rest of it. You don't buy that?
Well, obviously, I mean, if somebody has rejected violence and extremist attitudes, you know, that should be congratulated. But I think that given the fact that the kind of history and what we've seen of Tommy Robinson and some of the things that the EDL have kind of put out via their website, via alternative sources, I think that we have to be very, very wary as to where he's going with this. And I think that, yes, if he is rejecting those kind of ideologies, those kind of extreme views, that's great. But I think it's a case of let's wait and see. You know, let's not be too congratulatory at the moment.
Kevin Carroll's also leaving. What happens to EDL now? Does it die a slow death, or do you think it regenerates?
Well, I think that if you look at the kind of history of the far right, there's been a lot of organisations which have kind of begun to dissipate and fracture, and a lot of them kind of just move on at a very slow rate and kind of slowly disappear. And you can see that throughout the history of kind of far right organisations. I think what you've got to look for here is that the EDL is actually got quite a big presence. You know, they have quite a few supporters. You know, in your piece before, and you were talking around 35,000 supporters. And I think that what we have to be careful of there is that those people are actually have bought into the EDL ideology. And if you look at some of the splinter groups that have come off the EDL so far, those such as the infidels, for example, they're much more sort of aggressive, they're much more confrontational, and much more extreme in their views. And I think it would be very dangerous if some of those groups and some of those individuals behind that were the ones to actually fill that void that's now left by Robinson and the others.
Dr. Chris Allen, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks so much.
Just come